Welcome back to AV Veterans Talk. We're continuing our conversation with Danny Bazzell, this week's guest. So Danny, when you took off the United States Army, I mean, you know, the culture shock was about ready to hit home big time, right?
It definitely was. I don't think anybody's ever prepared for that early morning when the recruiter picks you up and takes you down to the processing station. But
Yeah.
it was definitely a culture shock. But
So you probably went to the same facility I did down there on Wilshire?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So you go down there and we can't really explain what really happens in there because nobody would believe it.
Right.
But it was very, very shocking to somebody. You know, we grow up with our families, and all of a sudden it's like, what did I do?
Now you're in a room with hundreds of other men, and
Yeah, and you have no privacy, and you have no dignity, I guess you would say.
I've always considered. I always look back at MEPS, the Military Entrance Processing Station down there,
Yeah.
as the original Walking Dead.
Yes, yeah,
Because you go into a room, and any veterans out there, you'll understand. You go into a room, and there's these doctors that are rail thin. They look like they're 110 years old, and they got these long bony fingers, and they're the ones that are doing your final examination. And
Oh yeah.
and I always called them the Walking Dead because they were pale. I mean, maybe it's just the atmosphere that you're in. You're kind of scared. You're nervous. You don't know what's going on, and then these doctors are all hovering around you everywhere.
Yeah.
And, I always say that's where the Walking Dead originated.
Yeah, I always looked at that like Tim Allen had a great line about that. So you look at a doctor like that and say, like, so you obviously didn't win the lottery. How did you end up in this job?
Yes.
So it's very, like I said, only a veteran would understand what takes place in there, and it's crazy. But it is the start of our journey. So where'd you go to basic training at?
Went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Home of at that time it was the home of Armor, the
Right.
Armor Center.
Did they tell you that at that time that when you were going in that you were going to go into armory or armor?
That's the quintessential recruiting story. Is I went in, and when I'm talking to the recruiter, I've always enjoyed building things, fixing things as a mechanic. Took my mom's car apart when I was 12 years old, and she had to go to work that night, and I had all the wheels taken off to do
wow.
a brake job. And my dad said, "You better have that working by the time she goes in." So off to the Chilton's manual, and I figured it out, got it. But I always loved mechanical things. So the Army guy, he says, "Your ASVAB scores, you pretty much have any job you want in the Army.
Right.
What do you like to do?" I said,
Yeah.
"I like mechanical things." He
Right.
goes, "Well, like a mechanic, like you like fixing cars?" I said, "Well, if I was going to do something like that, I'd want to be like a bulldozer, Army Corps of Engineers, heavy equipment mechanic." And he goes, "Oh, heavy equipment mechanic."
Yeah.
He goes, "I got just the job for you, 63 Charlie." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Track vehicle mechanic."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, so like bulldozers and that?" He goes, "Yeah, things with tracks on it." I said, "Sign me up."
Yeah.
And then I got my orders, and it said 63 Charlie M60A1A3 tank system mechanic.
Nice.
And I thought, tanks, that's not a bulldozer.
You're right.
And
right.
so that's how I ended up as a tank mechanic. I just wasn't specific enough when I told them what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I don't regret it at all. So.
Yeah, and it's funny how that, whether you were a cook or no matter where you ended up in the military, you either loved it or hated it or felt it was a blessing or a curse,
Right.
So, and you take it and, work around tanks. I mean, as a guy, let's face it, it's got a high coolness factor to it.
As any tanker out there will tell you, it's the best job I ever had.
Yeah, so exactly. So you were there, you went through tech school at Fort Knox too, right?
AIT, yeah, basic and AIT, both at tech school, at Fort Knox, and then got my orders from there to Fort Lewis, Washington. I thought I was going to be going to Germany because that's where all the tanks were pretty much, but I ended up at the 9th Infantry Division, Fort Lewis, Washington, and assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 77th Armored Regiment.
Yeah. And, tanks, everybody thinks like, oh my gosh, and stuff. They're these massive, supposed bulletproof, well-to-do, stuff. Maintenance and upkeep on those things, is there X amount of hours that they go?
It's constant.
Yeah.
It's ongoing. So
it's constant fix.
my job was I was assigned immediately, which kind of the throwback as we're road marching in basic training through the mud and the muck out at Fort Knox. We walked through the recovery vehicle training area, and I saw this row of these just gorgeous, massive steel beast out there, and I asked the drill sergeant, what are those? And he goes, those are M88 recovery vehicles. And I remember saying to myself, that's what I should have gone to.
Yeah.
I should have become a recovery operator.
Right.
Well, when I get to Fort Lewis, I meet with my motor sergeant, Master Sergeant Michaels, and he says, I'm going to put you on the 88.
Yeah.
He says, we're one short on the crew of the M88, so I'm going to put you on the 88. So I got assigned to that beautiful beast immediately. And so the M88, think of it as AAA on tracks. Mm-hmm. It's the first responder for all maintenance issues when it comes to non-crew maintenance on tanks.
Right.
And when one gets broke down out in the middle of nowhere, you come and either fix it or you tow it back.
Yeah.
And I got assigned to that, and so with that, you're constantly running when you're out in the field. You're running from one vehicle to another, handling all the problems. When you think about a 56-ton armored vehicle that's got all these complex systems to drive it and move and shoot it and communicate it, then there's so many things that can go wrong just on a regular basis. It's a lot of weight to be moving around, so we were constantly busy.
Yeah. Were the crews really hard on those things, especially? Did they really run them into the ground and abuse them pretty
You had
well?
good crews and you had bad crews.
Yeah.
Literally, the crew is a reflection of the commander,
Mm-hmm.
the tank commander, and we had those crews that religiously did their crew maintenance whenever technically when you stop, if you're not moving, shooting, or communicating, and you're stopped somewhere, you're out banging track with a hammer to find loose end connectors, center guides.
Yeah.
You're doing your crew maintenance, lube, oil, all that kind of stuff. And there were those crews that didn't take it seriously, but they usually paid the price in the end, and that they were the ones that were broke down somewhere waiting for us to get out there to fix them. So,
sure. So we're going to go to our next break, and when we come back, we'll finish that off, a little bit of that story, that time period, and then we'll get into your next phase of life and where your journey to Edwards Air Force Base, kind of how you guided in there. So we'll be right back after this break.
You got it.
I'm Bob Alvis, and thank you for joining us for this segment of AV Veterans Talk.